This conference will now be recorded.
Great. Okay, I will use my Bible. I'll get to do it twice a hearing. I will officially call to order the annual East Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District budget hearing. Good afternoon. My name is Harmony Kitas. I am chair of the Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission. Just as a reminder, the TSCC is a community oversight commission established by the Oregon legislature over 100 years ago. The commission oversees the budgets of all TSCC member taxing districts and annually conducts a thorough budget review and certification process. Additionally, the TSCC holds public budget hearings like this one to engage with district leadership and provide additional opportunities for public comment before the budget is adopted. I'll now ask my fellow commissioners and staff to introduce themselves and state if they have any business relationships with the district that could be perceived as a conflict of interest. Start with Vice Chair.
Sure. Good afternoon, Matt Donahue, fourth year on the commission, vice chair. My day job is as a municipal bond investment banker or financial advisor, and I do not have any business relationships with the district.
Allison Lugo-Knapp. It's my second year on the commission, and I am an organizational development consultant by day, and I do not have any business with the district.
Rita Moore, my first year on the commission, and I have no business relationships.
Good afternoon. My name is Todd Burton. This is my second year. Glad to be back here again. I have no business with the commission, and my prior life, I was a finance officer for a few local jurisdictions around the Portland region, and so familiar with local budget law, finance, capital planning, all the things that you get.
I'm Allegra Lopez. I'm the executive director of TSCC.
And I'm Brittany Aviari, and I'm the budget analyst at TSCC.
Again, I'm Harmony Kitas. This is my seventh and final year with TSCC. I know my last hearing with you folks. In my day job, I work in K-12 curriculum and assessment. I was a science teacher once upon a time. And besides being some consumer of your native plant sale, I have no business relationship with the district that would be perceived as a conflict of interest. Why don't we start over here? Two introductions on your side.
Thank you. Dan Mitten. I'm the Chief of Finance and Operations here at the district. I've been here 7 years, and this will be my 8th budget.
Good afternoon, Kelly Beamer. I'm the Executive Director here, and I've been here about 1.5 years, so second hearing.
Mary Colombo, newly elected board member, first time serving, and I'm a farmer by day.
Jasmine Zimmer-Stuckey. This is my second term on the board, and I'm the board chair.
My name is Ramona Nice. I'm also newly elected board member for the district, and I'm going to do this with a nonprofit called Law Science Center.
I'm sorry, your first name is?
Ramona.
Ramona.
Yeah. My little neighbor is Ramona.
Very
local. Yeah. We'll start with any introductory comments that you all have, after which we'll hear public comment. Then we'll ask questions and discuss the budget with you. We're looking forward to a robust conversation, which we always have here. As a reminder, since we only have a short time with you today, we encourage you to speak directly, openly, and keep the reading of any written comments brief, just so we have more time for back and forth conversation. And I'll now turn the floor over to Executive Kelly Beamer. If you have any comments.
Yeah, just to reiterate a warm welcome. Thank you all for being here. It's also an honor to have 2 of our new board members, so I hope that we can have a dialogue that's enriching and that everybody has a chance to contribute from our team. And I can just say, 1.5 years in, it's been really wonderful to, kind of move past the learning phase and start going into the doing phase. And I feel really great, especially in light of what's happening, national changes, that we are anchored in our 3 strategic pillars, which are soil and water health, climate action, and equity. And so those are really just, you're going to hear again and again today about those underpinning all of our work. Yeah.
Great. Now call on any members of the public who would like to speak. Each person is limited to 3 minutes of public comment, and we'll let you know when you're nearing the end of your time. I believe we have some written testimony. Is there anybody else signed up to testify today?
No, we don't have anyone written who has signed up in person, and I don't see anyone online. Dan, let me know if I'm missing.
There's nobody else online.
But Chair, as you mentioned, we do welcome
in-person verbal testimony and written comments from the public. We did receive written public comment for today's hearing from Tom Bussey, and the submitted comment, we do not read it in its entirety due to time, but in summary, it provides suggestions for the commission to consider the region's cumulative tax burden and suggest convening meetings to discuss coordinating and consolidating functions between soil and water districts and the urban flood safety and water quality district. The commissioners have received the full written public comment, and we also have posted it to our TSCC website. It will be included in our meeting minutes as well.
Great. Okay, we'll dive into our discussion, and Rita, you have the first question.
This year marks an important milestone for the district, your 75th anniversary. Reflecting back on the 75 years, what do you think are some of the most important achievements of the organization?
Great. Take a go at that one. Looking back 75 years ago, you can see a map of this district behind you. The landscape looked a lot different. It was mostly East County had a lot more farmland and a lot more agricultural base, and we were founded by farmers who were seeking help addressing erosion and creating on-farm plans. And it's neat to be in this moment to think we haven't lost that service that we're providing to the ag community of East County. We're still providing technical assistance, cost share with things like irrigation efficiency investments, soil health, and we've evolved to provide services that reflect the demographics of our district. So some of the things I feel really proud about being in the 75th year is the fact we have created permanent forever farms by working with landowners to ensure that ag base remains and isn't converted. We've protected about 250 acres of forever farms and completed 13 projects. And so that's an asset that's going to live into the future. Another thing I feel really excited and proud about is the work we've done on the riparian area. The Sandy River Basin, Johnson Creek are two vital salmon arteries that our district supports. And we work with private landowners to reestablish native vegetation, provide shade that brings the temperature down. And so collectively, we've done over 26 miles of stream care through kind of our niche of working with landowners. We have the Headwaters Farm that's graduated 22 farm businesses and worked with 45 over the course of its last 12 years of being up and running. And our grants, I think, speak for themselves. So we have just completed another round of our Partners in Conservation grants. And that's one of the most important ways that we get tax investment dollars out on the ground in culturally specific and community specific ways is investing in our partner orgs that are implementing soil and water conservation. So I think that's just a snapshot. I'd love to open it up to the board members if there's anything to add that you all.
Good overview.
Yeah, and I live out in East County, the rural area, and it's just really great to see how many people have their little East Multnomah Conservation Partner plaque at the front of their driveway, which indicates that somewhere on their property they have implemented some kind of erosion control, irrigation efficiency, they're a stream care partner. It's pretty hard to drive throughout Corbett and not see one of those signs. So I'm just really grateful to see that. And then, obviously coming into the urban area, it's not as obvious because we don't put signs up everywhere. But through the grant program, it's a major course. And that's true right around the corner for me. There's a community garden in a middle school, just right on Boston 82nd Avenue, and the district. Just a couple blocks from me.
So I get to ask the next question. I get to put the new board members on the spot, maybe. I don't know. So, and we asked this to a lot of the jurisdictions, and something I actually, when I was working, being on your side of the table, always struggled with. Last year, we talked about your plans to develop performance measures related to your strategic plan. And today, we'd like to hear about any progress you can report on that so far. What have you been measuring? And if you could maybe share some accomplishments from last year based on your performance measures.
Yeah, I can start with that one. So we had a couple, I think last year you remember you reviewed our strategic plan. It was very large and we were going to commit to, putting some numbers down. And the staff did that, and I really applaud Kelly's leadership and coming in as a new executive director, you can really have the ability to say those things, which I appreciated. And the success, I mean, it has been great. So we set a goal of doing 3 easements to create those forever farms. Blew that out of the water with 5 easements. These are 5 real estate transactions in a year for a program that really includes 1 staff member is really phenomenal. So we are really glad to see that and maybe want us to adjust our KPI in the future. Headwaters Farm, we are really strategic in recruiting the right kind of farmers who want to come and learn farming techniques we have to offer, build the community there. We expanded the recruitment efforts, and we had 10 applicants this year. So that was really great. We hope that that is a program that actually attracts people nationally to this area. It's such a great place to farm.
Did you have a target for the number of recruitments for the Headwaters Farm? Or?
We wanted 10, is how many, and then I think we accepted 2. Yeah. So it is a pretty competitive program. We've implemented bilingual workshops with Lowe's and Growing Gardens, and really I'm excited about all of that, but I'm especially excited for this last one, which is getting our board out in the field as much as possible to see this work on the ground so that we can provide better guidance and insight and feedback to staff, especially as we have we have 2 new board members this year. So we toured Matwood Community College, which you'll hear a little bit more about later. In June, we're going to the Women's Correctional Facility to tour the Growing Gardens program there, which we support through our Partner in Conservation Grant. And then
Is that the one in Wilsonville?
No, it's
the Columbia River Correctional Institute out on Northeast.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
half of them, though, it's, I think we can try to buy it more for our next hearing tonight.
So we'll look at the garden.
Yeah. And then heading out to Rooster Rock State Park, where we're partnering with the Lower Columbia Shore Partnership and Oregon State Parks on a stormwater retrofit for a parking lot that's, I think, 1,500 spots or something like that. And all of that stormwater pollution dumps right into the Columbia. So getting out in the community. But I guess what I want to say that's like not a bullet point is I have seen, we don't achieve or exceed our KPIs unless the staff is really working together. The success of 10 recruits or 10 applications to Headwaters comes because our Headwaters program worked very closely with our communications and outreach team to find where these potential farmers are. The easements come through largely, word of mouth, through one-on-one conversations that our other staff members are having with community members, recent Headwaters graduates taking advantage of the program. So it is really all integrated, and I think what I've seen over the past few years with this new strategic plan is the integration of your program success is contingent on my program success, and that really coming together, and that's what we're seeing a lot of that so far.
Can I ask one question? Do you have any plans or hopes, dreams to expand the participation in the Headwaters program to beyond 2?
Oh, yeah. So the Headwaters, people stay in the Headwaters program for up to 4 years. So we're always graduating more people, and it's basically as the land becomes available. Some right now, the land out in Headwaters or former Headwaters graduate can speak more to it. It's some of it's going through a really intensive soil health program. So we don't want to give people show up to Headwaters investor program in soil that isn't healthy. It was a former ball and burlap operation, which is a really soil intensive, chemical intensive kind of property. That's not the kind of farming that happens now. So really transitioning away from that is is slow. So yeah, as land becomes available. Yeah.
How many farmers are on in the program at any given time? And
it has been as high. I think your cohort was 14 farms, and when we do it by farms, so farms might be co-owned or have 3 farmers that are running this farm, but You had
There was
14 farms.
farm businesses.
Farm
Yeah.
businesses. Yeah.
And then what? Now it's maybe like, yeah.
Does
And-
it? Thanks for it. We need a tour of Headwaters.
Yeah.
They did it back in like 2018.
Yeah.
Where I
do.
But what's the distribution in terms of like graduates out of the program? Are they East County farmers on land? Are they urban farmers? Are they farmers outside of our county? After how's it doing to recruit farmers and that work to this county?
A lot of us are still in East County.
Okay.
In fact, after I graduated, I had access to land, and 2 of the graduates followed me to that land. So now 3 of us all farm on the same property. And then we took on another person who applied but didn't get into the program. And most of us are still all like very tightly woven, support each other, and are farming in this region, or are now in the restaurant industry or something else and still supporting all of these farm businesses. So it's built like a really robust community.
Yeah. We have, I had a moment where I was at something called the Share Fair, which is where a lot of the farm businesses come together to recruit CSA participants who will buy produce. And they had a map of all the different pickup sites and where the farms were located. And our staff was with me, and it was right when I was new, and they were saying Headwaters grad, Headwaters grad, Headwaters grad. And there was about 12 to 17 current farmers feeding, the community that we serve on that map. So that was like just an anecdote.
Yeah.
So when we come back next year, what will you tell us that you've accomplished that you're planning for next year? Just we have a question to ask, right?
Oh yeah, you're on it. Yeah.
Could give us a little preview.
Yeah. Well, our strategic plan does go through 2027, so we're doing like our last big push in the next year and a half. But we're going to tell you, we just completed our first ever reforestation project, planting 50,000 trees on a private landowner site that's near Warrendale in the Gorge, which is a specific effort toward our commitment for climate action, and kind of going into a new phase where we're not just suppressing weeds and planting, riparian area. We are wanting to reforest when possible. So I'm really looking forward to that success and what we learn. Jasmine mentioned sort of this reset we're doing at Headwaters. We're working with a consultant who's been studying on a national program around soil health and soil biology, basically by really investing in the return of biological properties into the soil. It will help with carbon restoration and address weeds and really kind of just do a reset. So I think we're already seeing progress. Compaction's going down, organic organisms are going up, farmers are really getting a lot out of it. And it's the only site, incubator site, that's kind of teaching this type of cutting edge farming. Mm-hmm. So next year, I hope that that reset will be really well underway. And then this dam will be coming down. We'll have secured the money for this dam removal. We'll get to that. I can talk more about that later, but that would be a really significant milestone.
Thank you.
You all are in a unique position. Most of the agencies and districts that we're talking to are in the upheaval of the uncertainty around federal funding. Mm-hmm. And we saw in your budget that you're carving out specific grant funds to help mitigate the anticipated federal funding cuts for climate change and equity projects. Mm-hmm. And that situation is still evolving. We're talking, that's what everyone is saying. We just don't know. We just don't know. But can you give us some examples of the types of work that might need this funding? Are there any projects that you're already aware of and that people are coming to you asking about?
Yeah, because we have the Partners in Conservation grant that requires a match, several of our grantees were relying on federal support. So anything that's squarely in the camp of equity or climate action, 2 of our pillars, some executive orders have frozen those funds. So honestly, just even a few hours ago, I was talking to one of our community partners about a land access grant that would have funded exploring pathways to a shared land ownership model that would be specifically serving the refugee and immigrant community. And so we're looking at ways that we can help move that research and that model forward through a specific grant grant or contract. And then on the larger sense, anything having to do with diversity, equity, inclusion trainings, we are wanting to step in. But our first step is going to be that listening and working with somebody who can meet with community groups and better understand and document where the impact has happened and where, given a relatively low number that we have, where can we step in and provide catalytic funding, maybe to plan for the change or to fill a gap. But we are hearing stories, and I know the board also has been listening and learning on this. Do you want to add anything on that, or Jasmine?
Well, I mean, I don't mean to just throw my head and say we don't know, but you know, in my own organization, we have our own dialogue happening right now. We have our own board meeting happening this week, and much of our conversations are around how do we meet this moment? You know, just the dynamics. And I think we're better positioned than a lot of conservation organizations, which is my professional background. But there's just, it's very unclear what funds will be available this year, next year.
How it should go.
Yes.
Follow up on your point about the amount of money. Why 300,000? It's a relatively small amount. We're just curious how you decided on that, and obviously, if need outpaces those available funds, have you thought about criteria for those grants? What's happening kind of with that amount of money?
Yeah, when I go back in time to January when we start off our budget process, you know, our budget process is before our work planning, honestly. So it's kind of like we're doing our best. So we are really shifting our budget to budget based on what we've spent in previous years and based on what, you know, that's our best indicator. So we had some additional funds to work with. We didn't have a lot. So this felt like it was meaningful enough to put some capacity in there and again, know that we can never fill those federal funds that were coming in at such a higher level, but it would be at least something to get us started in a meaningful way. And we have some ideas of community contractors that have a lot of trust and work with the same partners we work with that come from a philanthropic background who can help us do the analysis for these kinds of things. But what we know is we can get money out the door pretty quick in a way that allows us to track and create accountability, like our space grants we were talking about. Those go out the door within a month, and they're for projects that are emerging. And so we know we can do it because we have that infrastructure. Does that answer the question?
We noticed, so we were talking about like who's going to lead this work.
Yeah.
The budget message had mentioned a consultant to support the work. Is that consultant paid for within that $300,000, and what's the distribution of that money between grants and?
Sure. The consultant is coming out of the general funds, the community outreach and engagement program. $30,000 set aside for a consultant to do the assessment, the survey. The $300,000 in the special funds is grants fund special dedicated to the award. The award process has not been set yet. That's the board has to decide what's the matrix, but we wanted to be proactive and reactive to what was happening around us and the community members that were flailing. So how can we do that? But the consultant is in the general fund side, the operational side.
Thanks. Yeah. So in this budget, saw they increased the general fund transfer to the Land Conservation Fund by $300,000 year over year. I believe it's $400,000 last year now, $700,000.
Yeah.
So will you please tell us more about why you chose to increase the amount going into the fund and what the discussion was in making this decision? Kind of pros and cons you balanced.
So we decided to, as Kelly was just saying, we sort of realized we had some extra funds at the end of our last budget season and kind of trying to decide where that money should go. And, keeping land in forever funds is one of the sort of biggest goals of this organization. And we just want to be able and flexible that when these large parcels of land come up for sale, that we're able to either put easements on it or be able to purchase it to protect it in forever farmland. And it seems like now we're getting more traction in the community with easements, and so just kind of being ready to keep that going.
Yeah, part of that driven like 5 easements versus the goal of 1. Is that part of what's kind of driving that goal? Yeah.
And a lot of these are, you have to build trust in community over time. And so the uptake of the program is really going like this as neighbors are talking, as people understand, this isn't us policing or being, trying to restrict. It's helping you realize your goal of making sure your legacy continues into the future. And it's really, so it's to respond to that uptick over time.
I would add, it's not while Forever Farms is definitely the driver of the program. This program actually supports urban areas too, which is another thing that I have a lot of interest in. We have this program is helped establish the Nadaka Nature Park in Gresham, the Shoal property in Gresham, the Native American Youth and Family Campus provided the $500,000 in capital fund, like seed money, for them to purchase that property. So for me, that amount signals, we have a commitment to our rural communities, supporting our rural farms, but when we have an urban opportunity, we aren't forced to make a choice. And I just think in the coming years, as green spaces and things become more important, I know that entities are turning to us as that partner.
It's a big fund balance in that fund, right? It's not quite $9 million, right? Is the goal to kind of keep a hefty balance in there, knowing there'll be big expenditures and they'll rebuild, or is it more like we want to bank money now while we can, so we can make we have foresight into there are going to be a few big expenditures downstream. We talked about this a little bit last year.
Yeah, you put your finger on a really important strategic discussion we're having right now, because I think for a long time it was kind of like, oh, let's just hold it there. We know that we're going to need it eventually, but I think it's a yes and. I feel passionate about getting the tax dollars out on the ground and utilizing them in projects that are real time. And I know it can be transformational when that one property, we're just looking at our top 20 priority properties based on the public values they provide. And a few of those going in 1 year would bring it down. So we want to have that capacity. And intergenerational transfers happening now. The average age of a farmer in our community is 59. So it really is big picture kind of an important time. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like, being new to the board, but a lot of these opportunities just, come without warning, and you have to be prepared to pivot quickly.
How much are those easements on average?
They all vary based on the size of the property, the development opportunity. The easement is restricting. Some of ours
200 to 600,000 bandwidth.
I was curious to ask how long. I think of an easement as you want to put like a water line in someone's property.
Oh, yeah, like an access easement or.
Exactly, but these are easements. These are much larger parcels, right?
Yeah.
Potentially open space or farmland. So how big are the easements that you're acquiring?
They range from smaller farms that might be like a 10-acre farm to we just completed work on that was about 50 acres. Our rural area is highly urbanized in the context of the state of Oregon. It's parceled out quite a bit. So the larger end properties are more up in 100 acres, so the easements really range.
Is that a legal term for this acquisition? Is that
so it was
confusing term because you think of an
it
easement.
is. You think of an access, a conservation easement, which is what this is basically removing the development rights. We know that the urban growth boundary is only going in one direction. So it makes sure that this is the long game, that as that pressure heats up and, land use might change over time, those properties will provide agricultural values to our community for time immemorial. It travels with the property as it changes ownership and will restrict future development. So that it's a market transaction where the landowner is selling the right to develop or subdivide, and make sure that the primary use of it going forward is agriculture versus sort of there's an uptick in amenity farmers where they're not actually using the ag land, it's falling out of production. So the easement is it travels with the title and is registered with the county to make sure that those properties are protected.
And is that in perpetuity?
Yes.
And just to add in, like, one of the larger properties that is kind of on our wish list was upwards of $1 million for easement. So, like, I think it's important to have that fund be large and ready.
Yeah. It's opportunity fund, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is, and like I was going back to, like, our communications and outreach team is now like working hand in glove with this program, and that is just opening doors in ways that like previously just hadn't happened before. So, planning for success means budgeting for the outcome of your success, and that is where I see a lot of this program and some of our other programs too, where it's like we are putting our names out there. And putting our resources and our offerings out there, and we need to be sure that when those opportunities come up, that we can really follow through on what we said we wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Is it difficult to compete with the other values of land, the development value, depending maybe where it's located?
Yeah, whether it's if there's a Mount Hood view, that can drive a property up in value. The size of the house, a lot of property homes live across the street from a $4 million mansion that's been on the market on a 10-acre property that's been for sale for over 10 years. That's never going to go. It may be sitting on farmland, but it's never going to go back into farm production because
it's the land around headwaters zone, like it's not the urban growth boundary, but
it's in the urban reserve.
Right. So I feel like some of that property can be subdivided.
I can imagine you could be dealing with heirs of an estate who might have different ideas.
Timing of those conversations.
Yeah. I will say that we did one very lovely land transaction this past year, a really well-known farm, Dancing Roots Farm, and it's not too far from me. And the owners who were selling the property to us, they came over one night knocked on my front door and handed me a letter. And I thought, this is good. So then I invited him in. He's at my kitchen table, and he just told me their whole farm story and how they were so proud of this piece of land that they cultivated, and health issues and whatnot. They couldn't farm it anymore, but they didn't have any heirs. They wanted to keep their legacy alive, and that's why they sold it to us. And I knew, and they knew, that they could have put it on the market and they could have found an amenity buyer, but they wanted to sell it to us because that was part of their legacy. So it's just a very sweet option for them.
So this budget year, you plan to close out the equity-focused strategic opportunity grant pilot program. Could you tell us a little bit more about why this pilot is ending, and where do you plan to spend the funds that were previously set aside for this program?
Yeah. That program was designed to allow staff who were out in the community a lot, who saw potential grant opportunities, the ability to respond and fund through the relationships they had. And while I think the intention was really great, we realized that our staff aren't all skilled in grant making and don't know necessarily how to have those conversations. And moving into the transactional kind of conversation around giving funding, it wasn't natural for everyone. So we were really only able to get, I think, 1 or 2 of those grants out the door. So we just did what I think is a really healthy kind of what's working, what's not, should we keep going? Not working as planned. There's better ways that we're doing this work through a transparent process that we have on our website where we list our grants. Community members can see what's available and how to apply. So we are winding that one down. There's no funds except for finishing out a commitment we have with VA Northwest. And so those funds will then be transferred just to our bigger grant fund called Partners in Conservation.
So the purpose of those grants there's a lot of overlap with like the programs you have. This is just
Yeah.
a mechanism to get the grants out the door, like via your staff, and
Yeah.
it wasn't happening. So, is there work being done with your staff to kind of educate them about the types of grants and how to talk to like a broader degree?
We had a great debrief about this, actually. We were like, at a whole staff meeting, remember, let's go back to our intent to this. It's like, we thought that there might be some projects that weren't quite the avenue of pick, or, or other ones that this would open a door to. And after the analysis, it was like, no, we've got these 2 programs that are tried and true and working. And here's how we can be ambassadors to get the word out. So we have a position within our urban lands program that's really a partnership development position. We invest in those partnerships because that's the DNA of our work. And so many of the grants that come in, I know Monica has shepherded, and they have, they've referenced, we learned about this through your staff. So we definitely have people that are out in the community and that are opening that door.
So I was asked to ask you about your website. Before I did that, before I came here, I looked at your website and I thought it looked really good.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. We just want to ask how it's going with your website update. I guess you're planning to launch it next month. Is that still on track?
Yeah, we are looking at end of June now, I think. Yeah.
And can you just share maybe a little bit about what your intent was with the refresh, and maybe how you would determine whether you've been successful with that?
Yeah, Dan, you've been a partner in this one. Do you want to talk about it?
Sure. Our main objectives for the new website were mostly, and thank you for enjoying our website, it's about user-friendly experience. It's about the user experience most of all. Accessibility. There were some accessibility issues with our current site. Finding the information we need. Go look for reports and budgets and things of those nature. It takes a little bit of time, but granting opportunities, it just needs to be a better user experience. That was the driving thing. Community outreach program, it's now also a tool. You saw in our last budget cycle, we talked about the CRM, customer relationship management system. We've implemented that. So the CRM and the website are the 2 tools that we're leveraging our technology to be able to get information out to the community we serve, and to have them receive information about us, who we are, what we do, what services we have that aren't intuitive on our website. And with our CRM, who's participating in our plant sale, who's at a workshop, who might be interested in getting more information. All of this technology married together to be able to be better stewards of the community members. So we're trying to use the technology the best, and those are 2 best models right now, website and CRM.
There's a lot of content on your website.
It's content heavy.
Yeah.
It's content heavy.
I will say, I was kind of framing it like it's very encyclopedic. Like, you want to learn about something, you can read 100 pages on it. But really, let's be more success for us is when our services, we're a responsive organization. People come to us for services. So we want it to be clear. I live in a rural community. I have the suite. Do 3 clicks, you're there. And now it's very resource heavy.
I heard this funny story on the radio just the other day about the person that invented the like on websites, the thumbs up. And apparently it's like $1 trillion industry now. Everybody is trying to obtain these likes, and it really helps advance their messaging and their branding and stuff. So you have a thumbs up in your
we have a thumbs up. We have our own farmer thumbs up or whichever.
One guess on what our most popular or highest visit page on our website was.
Search.
The analytics.
No, close, but no.
What did you guess?
No.
That's what I would have thought.
Manure connection.
People who have livestock and have an overabundance, people that are gardening and have an overabundance.
Wants and needs. It's all. Yeah.
So is this industrial size?
Yeah.
Or is this like
chip
drop?
To create your own adventure. Yeah.
They need a new chip drop system for the newer drop.
We did composting for sewer utility. It was a big one. We used to say we took crap from everybody. Sorry.
You gotta get a thumbs up for that. There you go.
Gonna take us in a slightly different direction. So So we see funding in this budget for the Mount Hope Community College college dam removal project. Can you tell us more about this project and what role the district's funding will have, and what will be the long-term benefits of the project once completed?
Yes. I'm really excited about this project. We put a picture just because sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words, but this is the current status. There was, at one point, a earthen dam created, really just as a way to kind of create a pedestrian overpass. This connects two vital parts of the campus, sports facility here and the academic piece, so people can walk between. And what you're not seeing is that this is a historic vital artery of the Sandy River watershed system, Beaver Creek. So 20 years of investment has occurred in this watershed to bring the conditions up so salmon can come back and lamprey can come back. And so what the dam removal will do is on a biological and ecological level, it's going to lower temperatures. This is just cooking. I mean, you can only imagine in the summer, it's just a swampy mess. And so, so it's going to, the free flowing river will drop temperatures. We'll be able to revegetate, bring the riparian area back, which is already in really good condition just below the dam. So create that connectivity. It's going to create new gravel area for salmon spawning when the salmon are coming back in. And then just like what's emotionally connects with me is bringing salmon through a community college and what that means for the community. And a community college that's used for public meetings, for community sports events. I mean, to be able to have a touch point to this iconic species in a campus that serves a lot of the underserved parts of our district feels really seminal to me. So this is we're again just in the creating the vision, the Imagine Salmon campaign, but those are what I see as the outcomes. Ramona, and
I will just add to that Mountain Community College also has a fisheries program. So this, in essence, creates a living laboratory.
Yeah.
That's
a great point.
Are they a financial participant in this?
Yeah, we could not do it without them, for sure.
Is it
So,
part of the bond measure that we're considering tonight?
yeah, this is part of not payment, not dam removal.
Okay.
But the vision of what the campus can become, this is baked into their landscape plan or their what's the term? The campus plan?
Like their master plan.
Their master plan, yeah. So the leadership body and the board have approved this as part of the long-term visioning of the campus. But the dollars won't go for dam removal. We are going to we're fundraising and we've gotten some private support for the design phase. And we're just going to have to find money.
What's the timeline for design to full completion?
We want to finish design within the next year, and I think it's by 2027 or 8 that they'll start deconstruction.
So where does the water go right now? Like,
That's cool.
It's impounded in that pool.
oh,
And
And
it goes
whatever
through
stuff.
twin culverts, I believe it is,
Mm-hmm.
underneath the earthen dam.
Yeah, and upstream there's a golf course in Gresham that has a riparian, that has kind of a stream that all flows into this and it just stops. So it would,
How big is that thing?
70 feet high.
It doesn't look like that in this picture because you're seeing the lake side. If you're on the other side.
Yeah,
It's pretty big.
if you're walking on this,
Like,
it might
it's 70 feet. Is that
High and how wide is that crossing?
see,
Several
yeah.
hundred feet.
Yeah.
And then it flows into the Beaver Creek and in an area that was recently restored and then into the Sandy, right? This
All
Exactly.
that dirt, go widen the muddy.
And did the facilities manager say this would be like the first campus that salmon would flow through?
And we
like,
have
Yeah.
Reed College is a great example, but maybe it's
Community
the
college.
first community college that's Salmon Safe certified in the country. Yeah.
And so what's the timeline on the hope to acquire the funding for that? Just given especially the very
I know.
uncertain funding landscape
Yes.
we're seeing this year.
Yes. I feel so grateful. We have a contract project manager who is leading other dam removal projects like the Kellogg Dam and others. And her career has been tracking all the moving parts in community engagement. So we're doing the due diligence right now to get the funding to do the design. But it's, you said it earlier, there's so much unknown. There's federal funding that's required under certain mitigation legal commitments that we believe have to stay online. And I think there's a lot of philanthropic will. Look what's happened in the Klamath this last year. Look at the hope that we see with these kinds of projects. It's a chance to do it in an urban area and in a pretty healthy watershed. So it's a good question. I think we're moving forward as if we can find the fund. Yeah.
Do you have any idea how much it's going to cost?
I don't.
What I would say, and Jasmine can speak to this as well, this critical phase right now, the design phase, without this kind of investment that is being made, a lot of these projects never get the funding they need to move forward the rest.
Because you don't know how much to ask for.
Yeah, yeah. I hate to even say a number. I mean, I could bet we've thrown out numbers, but I just don't want to. Yeah.
A lot.
So where does it drain to now? Is it just,
A lot.
It goes through, I think, you can see here where it says Headloam on the map.
Yeah.
That's basically the culvert that kind of flows down, and I think it's probably at a pretty steep angle, down into Kelly Creek, the other side. It's basically Kelly Creek would have just continued through here.
Fingers
Right.
crossed from outside everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. So much work out
I know.
We've done a bunch of their unpaving. too,
Yes,
there.
this is just part of a bigger 10-year initiative with the campus to support stormwater. You all just heard Whitney talk about our grounds here. What we've been able to do is scale up. We kind of call it demonstration projects where we can really work with a partner and do large scale.
Yeah.
So it's great. And, the fisheries program Ramona just mentioned, they're training their students to tend to, learn about the engineering of these and support ongoing maintenance. Good stormwater.
We'd love to hear more about the role of technology in farms. A field we would imagine continues to evolve.
Yes.
What role do you play in monitoring and sharing the advancements with farmers?
Well, regarding technology and farming, I think for us, technology introduces efficiencies, but our first commitment is conservation. So any technology that we're investing in has to be in line with our commitment to conserve and restore soil and water resources. So to that end, I'm going to geek out. We put in a weather station this year at Headwaters because it's vital for farmers to know about precipitation and what's coming, and also because there was a community need. The closest one was at the airport in Gresham, 7 miles away, which is on the Columbia, which is a really different weather pattern than where Headwaters is. So by installing this weather station, we can track things like evapotranspiration, which is the rate at which plants are taking and processing water. Farmers can determine based on that data when to irrigate when it's most efficient. And grower days that help farmers predict when to apply certain treatments for pests. And then not only that, we've been able to partner with the University of Utah to put this online with the National Weather Service. So it's an asset for the whole farming community in Headwaters. So it's a good example. And I don't know, Mary, you as a farmer, you don't have that in place.
No, and a lot of us, we can't live at Headwaters. And I think even just knowing temperatures would be nice. Do I need to put out my frost protection? Do I not? What can I plant out my tomatoes yet? I think that sort of information would be very basic, but very helpful.
So all the Headwaters students have a new proprietary app that we have access to that goes right to that weather station. So if they're at home doing planning, it's syncing everything up. So that's really cool.
Alumni too.
I like that idea. That's an
Since
example.
things are changing with the weather service, probably,
Mm.
will this insulate you at all from any kind of disruption in federal funding for that?
That's a fascinating question. Perhaps. It could only give us a localized resource.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. With that, I just want to thank you so much all for being here. This is, oh, go ahead. We have a minute.
So I watch OPD on a regular basis, and they do these little clips of like science in action.
Yeah.
And one of them is on agrivoltaics.
Yes, interesting.
Do you guys do any of that?
No, we do. We have voltaics on our farm to generate energy for our farm and to offset to go into the grid to support energy conservation. But agrovoltaics is use of exclusively ag land and also trying to integrate grazing or. So the OSU extension has some experiments going on exploring that. And I know in Eastern there's a statewide committee that's been put together by the governor to look at this issue of agrovoltaics on farmland. And I think it's an emerging field of exploration.
We have so little farmland left in East Multnomah County. And we have so many parking lots and schools and big box stores and malls. We have a lot of rooftops in Multnomah County. So my priority is let's put voltaics where we already have development, and let's leave our farmland, the little that we have left, for farmers. Even with agrovoltaics, you're still restricting the kind of agriculture that you can do on that property. So, in perpetuity, you will do, sheep grazing or something like that. And that's not how, farmland has ever been managed. So I would really like to see us protect farmland in East Multnomah.
Hard to rotational grade.
Yeah.
Is that voltaics just putting solar panels on
farmland
and trying to farm underneath it.
Oh, and trying to farm underneath it?
Yeah.
Like mushrooms or something?
Or grazing.
Oh, so they'd be high.
Yeah, they're kind of on these extension rods.
Bees or something is another thing. But again, you can do those things elsewhere. And until every building over here has I would like to see us protect our farmland.
It may be like a more of a benefit where it's very like hot, like somewhere in Phoenix, where it's like you would want some shade from the voltaics, but we don't really need that here.
Cool.
Okay. This is my favorite hearing. I always learn something. It's also full of optimism, which I think even in climate science and all of that, you still do a lot of like, and I think here I always come and I think there's just the future of our region, and I think the partnership between the urban and rural is just such a important thing to continue to build in our community. So I'm thankful to be here and just appreciate so much you sharing and being so open and thoughtful in response to our questions. So thank you again. With that, I will close the hearing and open a regular business meeting of the TSCC, and we'll get our last bit of business done. Commissioners, do you have any further comments on the budget?
Nope.
Will you please share the staff recommendations for the certification letter?
I will, and I would also like to take this opportunity, as I do every year, to give a public thank you to the East Multnomah staff just for sharing information with us quickly throughout the process. You all do such a robust job of digging through and making changes to the budget. And so we're, sitting there just waiting to get the latest so that we can have everything in line for us to do our review. And so just a huge thank you to Dan and all the other staff who work so hard to keep us informed as we're going through that process. And then, of course, for check-ins throughout the year on budget law, just proactively communicating about all the work we do here. So with that said, we as staff found the budget estimates to be reasonable for the purposes stated and in substantial compliance with budget law. So staff suggests no recommendations or objections to the fiscal year 25-26 approved budget.
May I have a motion authorizing the commission to sign the certification letter as recommended? Who?
I'll second.
Thank you. With that, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. The East Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District, I can do it. So the budget is so certified by TSCC, and the legal will follow very shortly with our signed letter, so you have all the pieces you need for your budget. And with that, I will adjourn. Thank you. Yeah, thank you again.
Where's your next one?
MESD, Multnomah